students. Now we are in question number 42. Okay, so from here, what you can see is that this is your main problem type of question. Okay, so whatever the videos that I'll be making further, okay, involving question number 42, 43, 44, 47, 49, and 50. Okay, so that is your questions belonging to pro rata allotment and call scenario, as well as reissue of the forfeited number of shares. Okay, so first of all, whenever there is call scenario, we forfeit the number of shares, and the forfeited number of shares are again reissued at a certain amount of price. Okay, so what you can see here is that if you ask me, okay, in general, what is pro rata allotment? So by pro rata allotment, what we mean is that excess number of shares are applied. Okay, so in case of application here, what you can see, sorry, what you can write here is applied also. Okay, so whatever the number of shares that are applied, okay, is always more. So as I always sorry as I already explained you before, that this case of pro rata allotment, it only happens when there is excess application. Okay, there is when there is oversubscription. Okay, so if you have gone through this particular video that I have made, okay, so out there you can see the case of oversubscription. Okay, so whenever there is oversubscription, that time only we can see the case of pro rata allotment. Okay, so by pro rata allotment, it means that a number of shares are applied, okay, but out of the number of shares that are applied, only certain number of or specified number of shares are only allotted. Okay, so that is called your pro rata allotment. Okay, so in this question, what is happening here is that 2 lakh number of shares are applied by the public, whereas company, they had only issued 70,000 number of shares. Okay, so company here, they are making the issue of 70,000 number of shares, but they are getting 2 lakh number of applications. Okay, so pro rata allotment is applicable here. Okay, so in order to understand this entire concept, what you can do is that you can make this kind of table. Okay, so by table, it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so this is for your applied number of shares, and this is for allotted number of shares. So always remember that company can allot only those number of shares which are actually issued by the company. Okay, so company can allot those number of shares, okay, which is equals to the number of shares that is issued. So company here in this particular question, question number 42, company is making the issue of 70,000 equity shares. So company can allot only 70,000 number of shares. Okay, so whatever the number of application that has been received cannot be allotted. Okay, so out of 2 lakh, only 70,000 shares can be allotted. Okay, so the categorization out here, it can be this way. Okay, so it can be your category 1, category 2. Okay, so you can understand this way. Okay, so let this be category 1 or category A, or and this be category B and category 2. Okay, whatever is your understanding. Okay, so let us see here, as per this question, that 60,000 number of shares, okay, who had applied, they were rejected. Okay, so when 60,000 number of shares are actually issued by the public, sorry, subscribed by the public, they were not allotted. Okay, so 60,000 shares, they were rejected. Okay, so remaining 1,40,000 shares, they were allotted as per pro rata basis. Okay, so out of 1,40,000 applied number of shares, only 70,000 shares were allotted. Okay, and remaining 70,000 shares, they were not allotted. Okay, so when we receive the application money, the entry will be this. Okay, being application money received on 2 lakh number of shares at the rate rupees 4 per share. See here, what is happening is you don't have the control over the application money. Okay, you can receive the application money more than the issued number of shares and less than the issued number of shares. Okay, so whenever you receive, okay, be it over subscription or under subscription, whatever the number is there, you just receive it. Okay, and in the second entry, then you will make the adjustment. Okay, if you have to return the amount of money, okay, or you just want to keep it, then you can do it in the second entry. Okay, so here what you can see is at the rate rupees 4 per share, you are receiving the application and allotment money. Okay, so application as well as allotment money is received on time of application only. Okay, so this is received on 2 lakh number of shares. Okay, so what is happening here is that company, you can read in the question that applications for 2 lakh shares were received, applications for 60,000 shares were rejected, and were allotted on, and remaining shares were allotted on pro rata basis. And again, here is one more line that excess money received on application and allotment was refunded in cash to rejected applicants and pro rata allottees. So what does it mean? It means that 60,000 number of shares, they were rejected and their money is refunded. Okay, so 60,000 into 4 will be 2,40,000. Let me take you to this calculator once. Okay, so 60,000 number of shares are being uh, rejected here. Okay, so 60,000 into 4. Okay, because application money is application and allotment money is at the rate rupees 4. Okay, so 2,40,000. Okay, so it means that 60,000 number of shares, okay, which had applied, they were rejected and the money, okay, they were refunded. Okay, money was refunded. Okay, 2,40,000. You can see here, this is how it is, this 2,40,000 is coming here. Okay, but you can see here 2,80,000 also. How is this coming? Now you can read the line, excess money received on application and allotment was refunded in cash to rejected applicants and pro rata allottees. It means that out of 1,40,000, 70,000 shares being allotted as per pro rata basis. Okay, so which means excess. Okay, you can see the excess here is, excess number of shares is 70,000 number of shares. Okay, okay, excess is 70,000 number of shares, because out of 1,40,000, 70,000 shares were allotted, so which means 70,000 shares are still present. Okay, so excess money on these number of shares, 70,000 shares are also refunded here, which means 2,40,000 is for this 60,000 number of shares, and this extra number of shares, okay, this 70,000 shares which are being allotted as per pro rata basis, okay, they were also refunded. Okay, so 70,000 into 4. Okay, 2,80,000. So 2,80,000 plus 240,000 is actually your 5,20,000. So this is how you can get the amount. Now you may ask me that why the money is refunded when there is excess application received as per pro rata, this pro rata basis. Why are we refunding the money? See, first of all, what happens is that whatever the excess money on these, pro rata basis, okay, whatever the money, excess amount of money on application is received, that is actually adjusted towards the allotment money due. Okay, but we are receiving allotment money along with application. So how can we adjust these extra number of shares? I mean, the application money on these extra number of shares. Okay, so it is not adjusted. Yeah, it could be adjusted with your call money, but in this particular question, we are not doing so. Okay, so we have to follow the question, whatever is been said here. Okay, so what is happening is now only this 2,80,000 shares, sorry, only this rupees 2,80,000 is transferred to equity share capital account. Why? Because 70,000 number of shares are being issued by the uh, company. Okay, so 70,000 shares were actually issued by the company. Okay, so only 70,000 shares can be allotted here. Okay, so 70,000 into 4 is 2,80,000. Okay, so this is your first two entries. Okay, so let me use this highlighter here. Let me use this color. Okay, let this be this color. Okay, so okay, oh no, 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 it is not looking nice. Okay, Okay. Okay. So second entry is also done. Okay. So now let us move on to third entry. Okay. Allotment money will not be due here. Why? Because allotment money is already received. Okay. Now we will move on to share first and final call. Okay. So now this share first and final call money was due. Okay. So you can see here the shares are actually issued at par. So when when rupees 4 is already received, so how much is left? 6 rupees is left out. Okay. So the first and final call money will be due on 70,000 number of shares. Why? Because 70,000 number of shares were actually issued to the public. Okay. So this 70,000 number of shares, I mean the first and final call money will be due on 70,000 number of shares. Okay. So this is your entry. You know this already. Okay. 70,000 into 6 will be 4,20,000. Now what is the question here is, I mean the adjustment. All money was received except on 1,400 shares applied by Anurag. So there is calls in area on time of share first and final call. Okay, but we don't know how many number of shares were actually allotted, because here it is mentioned that 1,400 shares were applied, but always and always the money is always due on, okay, is always due on allotted number of shares. uh, this allotment money or the call money on shares are never due on applied number of shares, but they are due on allotted number of shares. So we have to find the number of shares that are actually allotted to Anurag. So we have to use this particular formula here. Okay, so we know this formula. Okay, so number of shares allotted is equals to total number of shares allotted by total number of shares applied into number of shares applied. Okay, but if you have to find number of shares applied, then you will write this way, that is total number of shares applied by total number of shares allotted into number of shares allotted. This way you will find the number of shares applied, sorry, allotted. Okay, but in case of number of shares allotted, you have to use this particular formula. Okay, just see this properly. Okay, now this formula is only applicable only on this particular slab. Okay, whatever the total number of shares that is applied, or total number of shares allotted that we are talking about is here. Okay, so we have to find the total number of shares allotted, right? So let us see what is the total number of shares allotted. Total number of shares allotted is 70,000. Okay, so we will see now total number of shares applied. Okay, now don't make this mistake by writing 2 lakh. Okay, because this 2 lakh is for the entire number of shares that's allotted, sorry, applied. Okay, we will only choose 1,40,000. Okay, so this will be out here 1,40,000 into 1,400, that is number of shares applied to the shareholder. Okay, so 1,400 is applied by Anurag. You can read the question. Okay, so you will get 700 number of shares. So we mean that 700 number of shares are actually um, allotted to Anurag. So hence on 700 number of shares, calls in area will be there on time of share first and final call money receipt. Okay, so this is your entry. Calls in area, you can see here 700 into 6, 4,200. How do we come to know that 700 shares were allotted? From this formula. Okay, and now whenever you use this formula, please refer to that particular section only. Okay, we are talking about this particular section, so we have to worry about this particular section only. Okay, when number of shares are allotted and number of shares are applied, so only when there is pro rata. Okay, whenever you can see the pro rata adjustment, so pro rata adjustment is happening only here. Okay, so whenever there is kind of pro rata adjustment, you have to use this kind of formula and you get number of shares allotted or number of shares applied. Okay, again I want to repeat, the formula is only applicable to the slab of your number of shares applied and allotted, that is pro rata basis. Okay, so now have a look at the next entry. So the number of shares that are actually being now forfeited here for non-payment of share first and final call. So this is your entry. Okay, equity share capital will be debited whenever we forfeit the number of shares. Okay, and calls in area will be towards the credit side, and share forfeiture account or forfeited shares account will be in the credit side again. Okay, so here entire nominal value or face value of the share is called up. That's why we are writing 10 here. Okay, and number of shares that is forfeited. So 700 into 10 will be 7,000. Okay, calls in area is 4,200. Okay, now the difference between them will be 2,800. Okay, so you already know that share forfeiture amount is actually the amount that has been already paid by the number of shares. So 700 into 4, that is that 4 rupees is for application and allotment. Okay, so 700 into 4, that application and allotment money is already paid by 700 number of shares. Okay, so 700 into 4 will be 2,800. So that way also you can try to understand the situation. Okay, so now we are now forfeiting the number of shares. Oh, sorry, we are making the reissue of number of shares. Okay, so when the shares are reissued, the entry will be this. Okay, bank account debit, share forfeiture account debit to equity share capital account. Okay, so in the question it is mentioned here that his shares were forfeited and the forfeited shares were reissued at the maximum discount permissible under the law. So as per Companies Act 2013 re-amended, okay, the maximum discount allowed is 40%. Okay, so 40% of 10 rupees will be rupees 4. Okay, so rupees 4 is the discount, which means we are reissuing the number of shares at rupees 6. Okay, so 10 minus 4 is 6. So we are reissuing the number of shares at rupees 6. So 700 into 6 will be 4,200. Okay, here the shares are reissued as fully called up or fully paid. So 700 into 10 will be 7,000. So 7,000 minus 4,200 will be how much? 2,800. So this way you can see the share forfeiture amount will be here. Okay, so we already know that whenever the shares are reissued below the face value of the shares, share forfeiture account will always appear in the debit side. Okay, so now you can see here profit is 0. Why profit is 0? There is no profit on reissue of forfeited, this forfeited shares. Why? You can see here, here is 2,800 share forfeiture account 2,800. Okay, now again in the debit side we can see here share forfeiture account 2,800. So 2,800 minus 2,800 will be 0. That's why we are not making in any entry for share forfeiture account debit to this capital reserve. Okay, whenever there is no profit, why to pass that particular entry, isn't it? So that's why we are not passing that entry for profit on reissue of forfeited shares, because there is no profit here. 2,800 minus 2,800 is 0. Okay, so this is your question number 42. Okay, this is a very simple question.